maybe I can just give a little bit of brief background about myself. So I have been in finance for close to 20 years now. I started in the industry in 2007. I was working for the large financial institutions here in Canada, alhamdulillah. But as we know, these large banks and financial institutions never had any sort of halal product or service. So whether it be halal mortgages or investment opportunities, they were not available. And that was, a period between 2007 and 2014 before I decided to go back to school on a part-time basis, and I completed my MBA, alhamdulillah, from the University of Toronto's Business School, which is the Rotman School of Management. And that's where I got introduced to the world of Islamic finance. There was an Islamic finance course that I ended up being the teaching assistant for. And from that, I recognized that there is a way to be able to do halal financing in Canada, without having to change the rules or the regulations or the laws. And so this was an eye-opening moment for me. That MBA then led into 2 other degrees. I did a second master's in corporate governance and finance, and then I ended up doing a doctorate in Islamic finance, all jointly through the Rotman School of Management and the Henley Business School out of the UK. So from that educational experience and that professional background, I decided to take the risk to figure out if, halal products could be made within the confines of the regulatory environment and the rules and regulations within the banking system here, while also complying within the Sharia. That was the most important part. And so in 2020, we launched our program, alhamdulillah. We launched the very first Murabaha and Musharaka halal mortgage programs. And we were able to then, find ways to attract community deposits or investments into that program. And then we were able to basically fulfill that mandate. And so when you fast forward to today, Menzel is the leading Islamic financial institution 6 years later. Our mortgage products are available in Ontario, Quebec, Alberta, and BC. Our investment products are available across the country. And we also do a halal wills product, which is also available in Ontario. And we're expanding it to Alberta and BC quite soon. And finally, we are introducing halal checkings and savings accounts as well, inshallah, by the end of this year. So that work is actively happening. And so our goal really is to put together, Canada's first Islamic digital bank, right? That is our goal. We recently launched in the US this past summer within our investment program. And we are expanding our products and services as we speak down south. So this is a North American mandate or a North American opportunity that we want to solve for, because nobody has a multi-product, multi-service offering like we do. Is everything on the screen? We're good now? Okay. Okay, Jazakallah khair. So that's just a bit of an intro. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد. I want everybody in this room to understand that we are not alone. There are 2 million Muslims in Canada, which represents about 5% of the population. And although we would consider ourselves financially excluded, right? So we are removing ourselves from participating in traditional banking services. This is an exclusion, right? And we are considered within the realm of unbanked or underbanked, right? So either we don't like banking because it's impermissible or doesn't align with our faith and values, or we use it to the very minimal aspect, meaning I need a checkings account because I have to put my deposit for my payroll, or I need one credit card, maybe it's prepaid, maybe it isn't prepaid, so that I can build my credit score because I can't even get a phone line without a credit score, or I can't even get rental agreement without a credit score. So this is what I mean by underbanked versus or unbanked. And we're not the only ones in Canada, right, that think like this. There's indigenous communities, there's black communities, there's other minority communities that look at the Canadian banking system and say, well, that doesn't align with my beliefs. It doesn't align with my values. It doesn't align with my ethics. It doesn't align with my religion, right? And so, there are stats that suggest that upwards of 3 million Canadians fall into this category. Some people say it's even double that amount, right? This is about 8% of the population, 3 of 40. Some people say it's as high as 15%. And so there is a real systemic problem in Canada when it comes to having options as a consumer within banking. And we see this across multiple industries. It's not just banking, it's airlines, it's telecommunications, it's trains. There's only a few players within each industry. This is what we like to call oligopolistic industries, and Canada loves them. Even the grocery market, right? You have Sobeys and Loblaws, and then you have all of these sub-brands to make you feel like there is competition in the market when there really isn't. And having a lack of options really hinders the economy, right? It hinders financial inclusion, meaning you're not allowing people to participate, right, in a financial banking system that allows for economic growth, and it doesn't allow for social development either. And so this is not only just a real problem for the country, but it also becomes a real problem for our community. We have, because of the lack of halal banking options currently, and let's call it for the last 40 years since I've been in Canada this has reduced our ability to generate wealth, to generate intergenerational wealth, right? Not only for us but for our kids. It reduces our ability for community endeavors, community enterprises, even, of course, charitable impact, right? Because we all know that within Islam, we have the obligation of 2.5% of zakat al-mal, which is almsgiving from the perspective of our net worth. We have to calculate that, we have to give it away. So if we think about the missed opportunity over the last 40 years, because we didn't have halal banking in place, I would say it's not just in the hundreds of millions of dollars, it's probably in the billions of dollars, if not tens of billions of dollars of missed opportunity, right? And so we need to think about this as a community to say, well, how can we move halal banking forward? Because the effort right now is still not as strong as the effort that was done for the halal food, halal meat, halal restaurant industry. Today, there's halal meat available everywhere. You can go to Costco and buy halal chicken and halal beef. It's mainstream. Every time I come back to Ottawa, there's more and more halal restaurants. MashaAllah, tabarakallah, Allah mubarak. So there is lots of effort being focused on those types of services and products, and not as much when it comes to the halal banking and financial services industry. And so this can become a real problem for our community because, this is our first presentation today. We had a presentation yesterday at Masjid Canada. We had a couple meetings today where we're talking to Muslim business owners and they're saying, we want a way to expand our business in a non-ribawi based way. And Menzel doesn't have the ability to do that, right, in terms of commercial. We can do residential, no problem, but commercial is still not a product that's available. Auto financing, which is a big need, is still not available. Student financing, big need, not available. What else? Business financing, big need, still not available. We have the capabilities, but where is the source of capital coming from? Right? That is our responsibility as a community. And when we think about the history of Islamic finance, right, we have to understand that this is the first rule book of finance that was ever put together for mankind. Over 1,400 years ago, from the time of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this was available. And if we think about what we have today and why Islamic finance didn't proliferate as much as traditional finance did, which was instituted only 400 years ago during the time of the Vatican. And there was a family called the Medicis. They were the ones that created this traditional banking system. It's only been 400 years. And in 400 years, that banking system has accumulated over $600 trillion in assets. And over 1,400 years, Islamic banking has only accumulated $6 trillion of assets. Now, a lot of people say, oh, mashallah, tabarakallah, Islamic finance is $6 trillion industry. You know, it's a T, it's not a B. That's great. But if you think about the perspective on that, we have over 2 billion Muslims in the world, which accounts for 25% of the global population. And yet we only represent 1% of the banking assets. 6 trillion of 600 trillion. There is a big gap there. And each and every one of us is responsible for that gap. Why? Because our money is still at the banks, especially us in Western countries. The banks are using our money for ribawi-based transactions. They're using our investment accounts to support the genocide. They're using our money to fight against our own people. And so this is a mindset and a shift of a mindset that is required in order for us to be able to prosper and move forward. A lot of times I get asked, okay, brother, like, what is Islamic finance? And I want to make it very, very simple for everyone here to understand and to simplify it in a manner that is quite comprehensible. Let's remove the term Islam out of this word Islamic finance first. Let's just think about the term finance. Everybody knows what finance is, right? It's the management of money. It's the oversight, the creation, the study of money, banking, credit, investments, assets, liabilities. This is what makes up our financial systems today, right? It's a broad term, right, that describes all the activities that are associated with banking, capital markets, money, investments. Anyone that's done a degree in commerce or business or did an MBA understands this. So that is what finance is today. And when we think about Islamic finance, you have to think about all of this, and then you say, you know what? We are going to take this and put a paradigm and a framework that aligns with the dictates of the Sharia. Why? Because we have divine law. We have laws that were passed down to us via the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's words, and the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This what creates, right, the Sharia. And from those rules, and these are not man-made rules, which is what traditional banking is built on today, from those rules, we have now a comprehensive way to deal with money, to deal with trade, to deal with business transactions. And so it is rules-based, right? There are philosophical rationales and underpinning wisdoms when it comes to Islamic finance. Whereas in the traditional finance, it's, sometimes it's irrational, right? These people on Wall Street or Bay Street, they come up with these, transaction types, whether it's derivatives or options or call options or put options, because they want to take advantage of the system. They're not thinking about it in an ethical way. They're not thinking about it in a fair and transparent way. And so Islamic finance isn't just a spiritual exercise. A lot of times, people think about Islamic finance as like, oh, well, this is a very dunyawi thing. I need to focus on the hereafter. I don't want to accumulate wealth. I don't want to accumulate material things. That's fine, and that's a very noble cause. But that doesn't mean that you're not allowed to. The Sharia allows us to build wealth in a halal way. We are allowed to generate income in a halal way, and we have to be able to use that income or deploy that income, deploy those savings in a halal way. And that could be supporting the community in business enterprises. That could be in investing in the community, investing in yourself, investing in your children's education, investing in your retirement. These are all things that can be done in a Sharia-compliant way, And it's not just for the dunya. This also helps support your akhirah. And lastly, Islamic finance is beneficial for everybody. There's not one person here that hasn't maybe interacted with a non-Muslim where they said, I didn't like a shawarma. Everyone loves a shawarma. Do they care that the shawarma is made out of halal chicken or halal beef or lamb? They don't. But it's tasty, the price is good, it's clean. These are the reasons why. And I'll give you a banking example. In the UK, there's a bank called Al Rayyan Bank, which used to be called the British Islamic Bank until the Qataris took it over and renamed it. 40% of their clients are non-Muslim. Subhanallah. 40%. And when you survey them and you ask them, why did you take a product or a service from an Islamic bank? You're not Muslim. They say, oh, I like the product. They gave me the product. HSBC didn't, or Barclays didn't, Standard Chartered didn't, PNB Paribas didn't. They were more transparent. It was more ethical. I like the social impact piece. It's within ESG. It's within SRI, socially responsible investing, ESG, environmental social governance practices. This is what attracted them to those products. And this is what Islam does. It is an all-encompassing religion, right? It doesn't impose on the non-Muslim. In fact, it brings them in, okay? And to extend that thought, right, this is where we start to talk and go a little bit deeper about, better understanding the concept of money, right? Because today, everybody earns an income, alhamdulillah, and we get money in our bank account. And when we want to take cash out of an ATM, it's in paper format or this plastic format that we have. Islamic economics does not consider money as an actual commodity. And we're going to discuss what is a commodity or an asset, right? And money cannot be sold for a profit or for interest. And once it is, that is considered riba. Imam al-Ghazali mentions that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the dinar and the dirham to be circulated and be an equitable and just standard between assets. Anyone here know what the dinar was made of back in the day? It was made out of gold. And what was the dirham made out of? Silver. Did one dinar equal one dirham? Did one gold coin equal one silver coin? No, because they were different commodities. One was more valuable than the other. What was one dinar equal to in dirhams? Does anyone know? What was the ratio? 1 to what? No, not 100, too much. 1 to 10, 1 to 20, right? Like when you do your zakatul mal calculation, right? There's a number you can either do in gold or in silver, and that ratio is 1 to 10, right? And it's still practiced today, right? Well, then the calculation of the nisab, right? What is that minimum? So this is how we use that to calculate. Well, what is the minimum net worth that you need to have before you are eligible to pay zakah? And if you're under it, then you're eligible to receive zakah. Imam Ibn al-Qayyim mentions that money should never be sought for itself. Rather, it should be used as a means to gain commodities, right? So even today, we have money. I can't give you $100 and ask you for $200 back. The extra $100 would be considered riba, plain and simple. I can take that $100 and I can buy this box of Kleenex. Now that I have this box of Kleenex, I can say, I'm selling it to you for $200. Does that make sense for everybody? Why? Because I took the money, I bought a commodity or an asset. Now that I own this asset, I can now resell it to you for whatever price I want, whatever we agree to. I can buy a bottle of water for $1 and sell it to you for $10, as long as you're willing to pay. But I can't give you money and say, give me more money back. That is not allowed in Islam. And so when we think about, well, where can I put my money? How can I invest it? How can I use it to finance businesses? We have to think about, well, what it does. What is the outcome? What is the purpose? And so we need to ensure that our investments and our financing is positive for society. Positive for society financially, socially, morally, or spiritually, right? And so it's very easy to then say, well, what can we not do? Well, we know we should avoid investing or financing businesses that involve themselves in riba, right? So banks, financial institutions, mortgage companies. Insurance companies would be another one. We know that we shouldn't be investing or financing businesses that involve themselves in alcohol or pork, weapons manufacturing, pornography, entertainment, gambling, casinos, right? It's very simple. Like it's a set of rules, and then everything else is halal. So that is a very, very important piece. Second is it has to be asset-backed when financing for a profit. So asset-backed meaning this is the asset. I'll give you another example. Let's use the phone as an example. Let's say I own a phone store. You come to me and you say, brother, I want to buy the latest iPhone. I said, no problem. It's $1,000. And then you say, well, I don't have $1,000. It's okay, that's fine. I'm willing to finance this for you for $100 a month for the next 12 months. So what's 100 times 12? $1,200, right? So you can either pay cash today for $1,000, or I can give you the ability to finance it in installments, and by the end of the 12 months, you pay me $1,200. That 20% markup, right, the $200 extra, is that riba or is that profit? He says profit. Everyone agrees that it's profit because it is profit. Why? Because I own the asset. Did I give you money? Did I lend you money? Did I say, here's the $1,000 and give me $1,200? Here's $1,000, buy the phone, and then give me $1,200 back. I didn't do that. Now, what he could have done is said, well, I'm going to go to the bank, right? I'm going to go to the bank and ask the bank for $1,000. And now you have a contract between you and the bank for $1,000, and you have to pay the bank back $1,200. The bank gave you $1,000 cash, you come to me, and you buy the phone for $1,000, but you're not paying me $1,200. You're paying the bank. Instead, for a Sharia-compliant transaction to be to work here, the bank should say, you know what, we don't have money, we're not going to give you the $1,000. What is it you want to buy? You say, well, I want to buy that phone from that store. So they would call me and they would say, Brother Muhammad, we're buying the phone. How much is it? $1,000. Okay, we'll buy it for $1,000. Now the bank is in possession of that phone, and they say, we have the phone. We're willing to sell it to you for $1,200. Is that okay? $100 a month for the next 12 months? And you say, yes, of course, it is okay. That is completely fine, and that is what we call a murabaha-based transaction. Does everyone understand that point, or are there questions or comments for clarification here? Yes? This is not a workaround to the rule. You have to understand that, okay? This is not a loophole, right? There's a difference, right, between lending money and acquiring assets for the purpose of trading them for a profit. And I'll give you the biggest example. If I give you $100, what am I basing that $100 on? What's your name, brother? Khalid. I'm going to say, Khalid, give me your credit score. Oh, mashallah, credit score of 750. Here's $100 at 5%. But this money isn't being used for anything. You could go use it to, go out to dinner. Maybe you go out and buy something with it. But all I have is a social contract between me and you that you're going to pay me more money back. I have no recourse. What if you can't pay? Right? So it's based on credit and risk default of you as an individual, right? I don't have any recourse. You could leave the country, right? So there's actually no, so one, there's no asset, and there's no sharing of risk even from me as a financier. I took a risk based on your character, your history. I didn't take a risk on the phone. Now, let's think about in a murabaha transaction, what risk am I taking? Well, I'm taking inventory risk. I bought this phone for $1,000. It's on my shelf. It's in my inventory. What if the market crashes and now the phone is worth $500? Well, that's my risk as a financier, right? No different than what happens in our murabaha when we purchase a home on your behalf. You can go into the market, buy a home for $500,000. Menzel will purchase it on your behalf for $500,000, and you could then say, I don't want the home anymore. I'm walking away. Where's the risk now? It's on us. We now have to hold this asset. We have to sell it. Maybe we sell it at a profit. Maybe we sell it at a loss, right? Allahu Alam. But you are not tied to then purchasing that property. We will come to you and say, you want us to buy it, we bought it, we want to sell it to you for this much, are you willing to buy it? And you say, yeah, no problem. We enter into a 25-year murabaha contract and you make your monthly payments, and that's it. We sell it back to you. It's a back-to-back sale, right, of an asset. But if I say, here's $500,000, give me $750,000, it's riba. It's very different. Right? It's not a workaround, it's not a loophole. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions this in the Quran. It is just the same, just a different name. Profit is another word for riba. And then some people argue, well, it can never be halal since we operate in a riba-based system. And everybody knows this ayah in the Quran, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions it in Surah Al-Baqarah, ayah 275, وَحَلَّلَ اللَّهُ الْبَيْعَ وَحَرَّمَ الرِّبَى. Right? He says God has allowed trade and forbidden usury, but we always forget what he says before that. They will come to you and say that trade and usury are the same, just like the brother did. It was mentioned 1400 years ago. Allah told us that this is going to happen. They're going to come to you and say this. But there is a distinct difference between trade and usury. I'm not putting you on the spot. I'm just saying. You're proving Allah's point, that's all. Yes, brother. Yeah. No, you can't. I can't tie you to that. That is non-Sharia compliant. Correct. Yes, absolutely. No, we can negotiate that, but you're not going to sign. Like I can talk to you and say, okay, brother, if I buy this for 500, I'm going to sell it to you for 750. You say, okay, I agree to it verbally, but you're not tied to it. You're not signing a contract. You can't have tied contracts, right? I can't tie you to one contract when the other contract hasn't even been initiated. So we can have that conversation, and you can say, yeah, if you buy it for that much, I'm willing to pay that much for it. But you still have the ability to leave or walk away. I can't force you to do it. We do, technically speaking, yeah, because we haven't signed away, but we wouldn't, right? Okay. I just want to make it very clear that when it comes to lending money, right, we're talking the term lend, right, or loaning money. We can only do it in the form of a qard hasan, social contracts, right? It's a gesture of goodwill. I give you 100, you give me $100 back. That's it. This is a qard hasan, and this can be considered a loan. Menzel, as a financial institution, we don't lend money. You are not a borrower. You are a client. We are a financier, right? We don't have interest. We have profit. Very different terminology, and let's not conflate the two. And it's not us, using other terms because, no, this is how Islamic banking works. Menzel does not lend money to people. We invest or we partner. That's it. Okay. Yeah, so we talked about this example with the brother on the fact that it's not a loophole or a workaround because again, when it comes to riba, I'm also guaranteeing my capital, right? This is also part of the contract, like that would make it non-Sharia compliant, right? So, and it's also one-sided, right? If you don't pay me, you go into default. What happens? I can ruin your credit score. I can, send you to court, and I can keep adding more and more fees, right? More interest, more fees, legal fees, admin fees. All of that, right, is unjust enrichment. And so, just to close the point on riba, right? Interest is a return on lending. Very plain and simple. Profit is a return from anything other than lending. Profit comes from revenue, from investments in Sharia compliant assets other than money. Yes, brother.
I have a question. When the asset you're trying to sell is somehow the value of it or the price of it changes with the interest rate.
Changes with the interest rate? How would that happen?
Interest rate sometimes spike some sort of ways for other people to finance other assets, to buy other assets. So it will increase demand on a certain asset. Because of this, the price of it can go higher. Well, for example, yeah. Like
Okay, I'll give you one example. Okay, so in 2021, Menzel had a murabaha product. Okay, and we did some murabaha transactions, 25 years, 25-year fixed, meaning the price isn't changing for 25 years. In 2021, we did those for 4.5%. At the time, the conventional banks were doing 2.5%, 3% mortgages. That's the comparison, right? Those 4.5% mortgages today, we're losing money on it. That's the risk we took. Interest rates went up, right? We could be making more money, but we're not. I can't go back to that person and say, we have to renegotiate this contract. Khalas, I sold it. I sold it at a fixed price. So they're winning. That was the risk we took as a financier. Does that answer your question? Yeah? Okay, good. Jazakallah. Okay. Okay, so that's the difference between interest or riba and profit or ribah or marbah. If we move on, yes, okay. So there's outside of interest, which we've just learned about, and outside of unethical purposes, there are 3 other categories that we need to learn, which is maisir or speculation, gharar or uncertainty, and then the last one is unjust enrichment or unfair exploitation. I'm going to skip interest because now everybody's an expert in the concept of riba. I want to move to speculation or maisir, okay? In Sharia, a contract is void or deemed void if you are relying on chance or speculation rather than effort to produce a return. So if I go to the casino and I say, I'm going to put $100 on black, that is speculation. I'm not putting that money somewhere where it can generate revenue. It's not an investment, right? This is just a game of chance. So that is one of the simplest examples I can give you in terms of what speculation is. However, I don't want you to misconstrue the definition of speculation to think, well, what about commercial risk? I'll give you an example. Let's say we want to open up a restaurant together. And then, we ask friends and family, this is what we want to do, and they say, in 1 year, 50% of restaurants fail. In 3 years' time, 70% of restaurants fail. And in 5 years' time, 90% of restaurants fail. That's all commercial risk. That's a risk we might be willing to take because we're saying, no, 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 like I'm going to hire the best chef. I'm going to create the best menu. I'm going to have the best experience. I'm going to put in all the work, time, and effort to make sure that this succeeds. That is not speculation. That is just general commercial risk of a particular sector or industry that you're willing to take, okay? And in fact, commercial risk-taking forms a very critical part of Sharia-compliant financing transactions. Sharia prohibits and voids contracts that are uncertain. So this is a disclosure piece, right? So if you came to my phone store and you said, brother, I have $1,000, I need a phone, and I just gave you any phone. I said, give me the $1,000, here's the phone. That would be considered gharar. Instead, you could say, I have $1,000, what phones do you have for me? I'll say, you know what, I have this iPhone 15 Pro Max, 256 gigs, it's blue color, and I can deliver it to you today. See? Subject matter, price, and time of delivery. This is actually from the time of the Rasul ﷺ and what is formed today in contract law. Like this is actually one of the main concepts in law that is used today, whether it's common law or civil law. So it's very important that we understand what we are taking delivery of and possession of, and that that is what was pre-negotiated. Unjust enrichment or unfair exploitation. This is all concerning late fees, right? You know, sometimes, let's say you have a mortgage with the bank. Let's say you can't pay the mortgage 1 month. What does the bank do? Here's an extra charge, right? The interest keeps going. Maybe you go into default a second month, a third month. Now there's a lawyer after you. Your credit has been ruined. All of these things is truly unfair. Islamic banks can't do that. We can charge you administration fees for our costs for administering, the NSF, or for administering, a letter because we can't contact you through the phone. But we cannot profit off of that situation. It's very, very important. And finally, unethical purposes, which again, we've already reviewed in its entirety. So this is the final part of the presentation, and then we can open up the floor again to more questions. But when it comes to Islamic financing structures, there's 2 categories. There's asset-based transactions like murabaha, bi'salam, istisna, and ijara. And then there are risk-sharing structures or asset-backed structures, mudaraba and musharaka. For the purposes of today, we're just going to go through ijara, murabaha, and musharaka. Those basically are like 90-95% of the Islamic banking transactions. And I'm going to skip the verbiage. I'm just going to go directly to the animations. We already gave you a couple of examples when it comes to murabaha, but just remember that when it comes to murabaha in a residential financing transaction, you as the client are going out, let's say with Brother Rashid here, who's our local Menzel Realty Group real estate agent that represents Menzel and represents you as the client. And this is how you can fast track and get priority financing from Menzel. He goes into an agreement with the seller to buy a house for $500,000. Menzel steps in, purchases it on closing on your behalf, and then we resell it back to you, for example, let's say $750,000. You take $750,000, divide it by 25 years or 300 months. It's a $2,500 a month payment. That's a murabaha. We buy it for one price, we sell it to another. Once we sell it to you, it's in your ownership, it's in your name, you have title, and all you have is 25 years of payments, and by the end of it, it's 100% yours. That's it. Very simple. Okay? And in ijara, we don't do ijara, but just understand that, Menzel would own the house and then you would rent it from us, rent to own, right? Or maybe rent with no ownership, right? So there's a couple ways of doing it. And, your rent is basically, part of the price and a premium on top of that, right? And you get exclusive use of the property, but it's in our name, right? We become the landlord and you are technically the tenant when it comes to kind of the laws of Ontario. Finally, in a musharaka, which is 95, 96% of menzil deals today, right? You have to think of it as a partnership. So that same $500,000 home, you would put 50% down payment. We would put 50%. We can go up to 80%. I'm just giving an example because the numbers, they're easy. You have $250,000 of equity. We have $250,000 of financing. Home is in your name. Title's in your name. And every month you're making a payment to us because we are now selling our shares of the property to you. And so what happens is when we have 50-50 ownership, with every payment you make, you move up in the equity. So you will go from 50 to 51, we go from 50 to 49. This is what we call a musharaka mutanaqasa, right? And so we are selling our shares to you for a price that we will lock in for 2, 3, 4, or 5 years, and then we will renew that price at the time. And you are buying our equity piece over up to 25-year period, right? It's very, very simple. So this is how all of our residential financing products work. With that, we can open up the floor for questions or comments on any parts of the presentation. And before we do that, I just want to introduce Rashid, who is local to Ottawa. He's our lead when it comes to the Menzil Realty Services. We encourage everybody to use Menzil Realty as a service in order for the process to be much smoother when it comes to your home buying journey. Lots of times, real estate agents come to us and they say, oh, we want to participate or have a client, and they don't understand the mechanics of our product. And what happens is the client then ends up not getting the home, right? The real estate agent has done a disservice to that client. Here, we are involved from day one, right? We're working with Rashid, ensuring that the property is being bought and that on the purchase and sale agreement, all the clauses are in place for Menzil to buy the property or partner on the property without any hiccups or issues by the time closing comes, right? And so we can help navigate that whole process, from day one to ensure a very, very smooth buying process, right? Secondly, and he's not up here today, but we have Brother Imran from the wealth and investment side, where he can actually help support any investment accounts that you guys are looking to create or transfer over. I know every one of you are already at the banks, which is fine. You guys didn't know about Menzil, but after today, inshallah, that changes, right? And Imran can literally help your hand, hold your hand, and he is a financial advisor, as they say, and can help with financial planning, tax planning, retirement planning, estate planning for yourself individually, for your family, even if it's a corporation, like a business. He has all of the experience and tools to be able to support that and support it in a Sharia-compliant manner, right? So for any of you guys that are interested in any of the products, whether it be realty services or investment services, please feel free to direct your questions to them, and I'm happy to answer any questions that they can answer. Barakallahu feekum wa jazakumullahu khairan. Any questions? Yes.
I have a question actually related to the partnership model.
Yep.
So if I understand correctly, if I'm buying a house in this partnership, I will be buying shares from you.
Yes.
How often do I need to buy these shares?
Every month.
Is it like
It's a monthly mortgage payment, right?
It has to be monthly, or can I don't know, buy more, let's say this month and less next month?
So you can't buy less. You can buy more.
I can't buy less.
You cannot buy less, right? Because the mortgage payment that we give you is the minimum monthly payment, right? You can buy more anytime. So what happens is every quarter, so like January, April, July, October, we basically send you a quarterly share sale, right? And this is part of the musharaka, right? Is we say, here we are selling our shares to you, this is your monthly payment. You already know what the monthly payment is because you signed the contract, but we actually have to give you what is it? Ijabu qubul, right? So we're selling our shares to you, and you have the ability to say, yes, I'm going to buy your shares, and then you just make your monthly payments. Or if you say, no, I'm not, then what happens is you're now indicating to us that you're going to buy us out, right? Maybe you inherited some money. You don't want to pay a financing profit anymore. You want to pay it off fully. So you say, no, I'm not buying the share sale this quarter. I already have the money in my bank. I'm transferring it to you. And khalas, the partnership is dissolved. The house is completely yours. We're not involved. Or maybe you're selling your house because you're moving. Or maybe you're taking a mortgage from somewhere else, right? So that's the whole point of the partnership.
Sorry, just maybe I didn't get this part right. But at the same time, I'm also like renting part of the house.
No. Okay.
No renting.
So it's not a confusion, but a lot of times musharaka, mutanaqasa, or diminishing musharaka usually comes with an ijara agreement, right? So it'd be musharaka mutanaqasa ma ijara. We removed this concept of ijara. Why? Because if there's a partnership and then we say you are a renter, well then what does that make me? A landlord? But the house isn't in my name, right? And so we simplified it, because what happens is, and this is actually a protection to you as a consumer, as a client. What if you missed a payment? Okay? Am I taking you to the landlord and tenant board because there's a renter-landlord relationship? Or are we going to the provincial courts because you are a mortgagee and I'm a mortgagor? You get what I'm saying? And so it would be very difficult for you to argue, right, that you are owner if we have an ijara agreement in place. Like there are companies out there that say, okay, well, we'll give you musharaka mutanaqasa ma ijara, but we own the home. It's in our title. We have ownership. And there's no guarantee, this would be outside of Islam from an ethical perspective, but there's no guarantee that they're going to give you the house. They're not going to transfer title, right? What guarantee do you have, right, that they're going to transfer title to you and then you have ownership after 25 years? Why would you want that, right? And then there's a massive tax bill to pay, right? So we remove the concept of ijara, right, to protect you as the client and the consumer. And we're not in the business of being a landlord or owning houses, right? We just want to finance. We're the silent financier in the background. You have exclusive use of the property. You have title of the property. You can renovate the property. You can rent the basement. You can do whatever you want with it. We don't care. Any questions? Yes, brother. Yes. So this is one of the reasons why musharaka is more popular with us than the murabaha, because murabaha can only be used for new purchases. Murabaha cannot be used to buy debt, which would be considered bay'ul ina. So instead, what does the musharaka do? You can do new purchases, you can do refinances, you can do mortgage transfers. We would basically buy out the debt from the bank or the mortgagor, and then we then insert ourselves as the partner on that amount. So to answer your question simply, yes, we can. We do fixed terms. Yeah. Yeah. Yep, yep. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so basically what would happen is you're breaking your mortgage with that secular institution, and then that mortgage is being transferred to us. But you can't break it without having somebody coming in to replace it. So we would come in as that replacement, right? So, for example, if you're with RBC, our lawyers would call RBC and say, we need a payout statement. They would send us a payout statement so we know how much is owed to the bank. Then Menzel, you would have a mortgage, like at the same time, Menzel would create the mortgage for you in a musharaka. We would take that money, pay out RBC, and now you're a client of Menzel, you're just paying us. And we've inserted ourselves as the sharik, the partner for that property. Yep, you're most welcome. Any other questions? Yes, brother.
I have two questions.
Yeah.
Okay. So, two questions. One is, are you financing any business like Qarza Hasana or
No,
anything? Okay. Only home
only
housing?
homes for now.
Okay.
Again, uh, all of this is through the efforts of the community. You guys want business financing? We can create the product. There's no issues with respect to the legal documents, the operations of it. But then where's the funding coming from? Right?
Yeah.
So we can only move as fast as you guys are willing to support. Alhamdulillah, we are the largest Islamic financial institution in Canada. We've done over $100 million worth of residential mortgage financings. But again, as I mentioned earlier, there are opportunities in commercial financing, business financing, auto financing, student financing, so much. But where is the money coming from? Right? So if everyone commits to say, yeah, like we'd love to do business financing and we're going to support seeding that program in like Menzel create a commercial financing fund. Okay, fine, we'll create a commercial financing fund and we will support it. No problem. We can make that happen, right? But we can only do so much with what we have based on what was given to us.
Right. Second question. Many people said it was one kind of maybe rumor that you buy house
Mm-hmm.
from I don't know you payment with bank related you buy house
Mm.
with interest and people take share from you like those kind of things or you pay this house seller with their like halal finance and people take house from you so like
Mm.
this is this kind of things happened or no
Yeah, so, when you're in a business like this, in an industry like this, there's always rumors, there's always unsubstantiated facts that go around. Alhamdulillah, I can tell you, we are a very transparent company. Am I connected on the internet? Can you guys see that? No, you can't. Maybe. Anyways, you can go on our website and everything is available in terms of to see like where our funding comes from, and our fund comes from the Menzel Mortgage Fund at the end of the day, right? This is a fund that everybody invests in, and from that fund we finance deals, right? So we don't, involve ourselves in I don't even understand the type of transaction you were talking about, but it's a very simple structure and transaction. Money comes into the fund. We use the fund to create musharaka and murabha mortgages. When you sign contracts with us, it says Menzel. It doesn't say TD, it doesn't say RBC, it doesn't say CRBC, it doesn't say anybody else. You are signing a contract with Menzel directly. We have ownership of the fund and the capital.
no interest include there.
There's no we're not paying interest, we're not giving interest, like there's no interest involved. Everybody's coming in under the basis of an investor, right? They are willing to take the risk in the program, whether from the profits or the declines, right?
Yes.
Yeah, like the key thing is Munzil has all those other portfolio products like RRSP, RESP, TFSA. So once all those funds are pooled in together, think about it as everybody here invested 50K. So everybody here has 50K. We got 100 brothers here, so that's 500K, right? Or whatever.
No, 5 million, bro.
5 million.
Let's do it.
So it's 5 million. So now we have 5 million. So now, 10 of you brothers come out and say, I want to buy a house for 500K. So now, because of all of you collectively pooling your capital together, now it can be deployed in the community. Now think about that on a countrywide scale. So that's why it's important. There are some other Islamic institutions that have been rumored to be repurposing, conventional loans and
Mm-hmm.
writing over, crossing out the name or whatever. Those are rumors. I can't speak to it. I don't know. But we don't do that.
No.
Yeah, we can only speak about our program.
And the good thing is that this brother also travels internationally to the Middle East. He has a lot of stakeholders over there, investors over there. He's been able to raise a lot of capital. And that's why we've been able to fund over 250 mortgages across the country and still grow it. And
Oh,
that's
that.
for new purchases. In addition to that, there's port overs, right?
Yeah, yeah. Transfers, finances, yeah, it's all included. Jazakallah. Any questions from the sisters? Yes? Thanks for coming again. Yes, yes, yes. So if you look at Bismillah ar-Rahman, I'm sorry. If we go here and you go into product, so by the way, since the last time I came, we've now launched the Menzel Invest app. So you can actually just download off the Apple Store or the Google Play Store. So you can see here. I don't know why these pictures aren't downloading, but you can basically like download the app. You can open up an account. Once you go through the sign-up process, you can choose what kind of account you want to open, which is an RSP. That's why, because it's well, I'm not connected to the internet. You can choose RSP, TFSA, FHSA, which is also the first home savings account. Now that's available. RESPs for the children. Even if you have accounts elsewhere, you can transfer them over to us, right? And what happens is once those accounts are opened, all of the underlying investments are completely Sharia compliant. And they are, as the sister mentioned, in mutual funds and exchange traded funds. So you don't have to worry about whether or not they're non-Sharia compliant. We do all of that work for you. And you get the peace of mind to sleep at night, knowing that you have a fully fledged halal financial lifestyle. Yeah. So what happens is there's 5 risk profiles, right? So you're going to answer a bunch of questions, and we're going to categorize you in a profile. So either you're very conservative, medium risk taker, aggressive, or very aggressive. So based on which category, it will then dictate, 20% in, international exposure, 50% in, U.S. and Canada exposure. Maybe you're going to get 10% in sukuks, 10% in real estate, 5% in gold, 5% in silver. You cannot customize those percentages. You will know exactly where it's going. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Once it's funded, you'll see like all of the securities listed underneath, right? So it'll say, you're in these ETFs and this is how much you have. So all of that has to be shared with you. It's not a guessing game. That would be considered the gharar, right? Yeah. So that's a separate question or a separate discussion because when you think about the realm of Sharia compliant ETFs, right? There are guidelines that have been given to us from the scholars under AOFI, which is AAOIFI, which stands for the Accounting and Auditing Organization for Islamic Financial Institutions, okay? This is a global body based out of Bahrain, regulated by the Central Bank of Bahrain. Menzel is the first associate member in Canada for AOFI. So even if you think about like global Islamic banks, like Dubai Islamic Bank, Mizan Bank out of Pakistan, Abu Dhabi Islamic Bank, um, yes, these are all members that were a member of an association. These have scholars that come up and they decide what is within like the Sharia that allows for some stocks to be eligible and some stocks not. There's three main criteria. Debt to equity ratio needs to be less than 30% for any of the financial nerds in the room. You also need liquidity ratio, right, of less than 30%, and then impermissible income has to be less than 5%. So for example, Apple, by default, not by design, is Sharia compliant. It's a tech company, it doesn't have a lot of debt on the books, it's less than 30%, and most of its income is derived from services and fees. Okay? So this is a separate topic from a scholarly perspective, right? So, some people say, well, we know that Apple, right, funds the IDF, for example. So then why is it still Sharia compliant, right? This is a separate filter that yet hasn't been kind of set as a rule from AOFI. However, Menzel, we've created a fund, right, and we're launching it now as an ETF, where we are adding another layer which restricts companies that participate in occupations, borders, and surveillance. Okay? We're the only company to do that in the world, actually, alhamdulillah. Right? And this is the least we can do to support our brothers and sisters in Palestine. And so when we think about that additional criteria, that becomes an added layer to say, well, okay, like for example, many of these Sharia compliant ETFs include NVIDIA. We don't. Many have included Microsoft. We don't in our fund. So now maybe your question is, okay, brother, can I only invest in that fund? Yes, you can. It's an extra additional process in the sense that once you sign up, you actually have to submit a request to speak to one of our portfolio managers. And then you say, I only want exposure to the Menzel ETF and the Menzel Mortgage Fund because you are more comfortable with the ethical screening that we use versus the others. Does that mean? No additional fee. No. It's just an extra phone call. That's it. Yeah. Yes, brother. Yeah. Yeah, so the brother's just asking, put faces to names. I did introduce myself as the founder and CEO of Menzel, right? So that's myself. Rashid is the lead, here in Ottawa for the Menzel Realty Group. We have many agents across the country, across many cities with respect to our products and services. Menzel as an organization was established in 2019, so we've been around this is our 7th official year as a company, but 6 years in market. We employ over 40 Muslims across the country operationally within the wealth sector, within the real estate sector, and we're continually growing, right? Alhamdulillah, mashallah. So, I think what the brother is just trying to get across from us is that the intention here from us is we want the community to succeed. We want the community to prosper, and that's where our niyyah is, right? When we think about the $100 million that we've been able to collect just in mortgage financing, that's not even including the additional $50 million that people use us for their investments, right? How much does the community benefit? Now, if we think about 100 million invested and over the next 25 years what the return is going to be, that 100 million should probably double or even triple. It might end up being, $200-300 million. The houses that money is in, those houses are worth 200 million. And over the next 25 years, even at a 4 or 5% growth rate, super conservative, those houses will be worth 400 or 500 million. And so when you think about $100 million that's been attracted, what that will turn into in the next 15, 20, 25 years, it could be 600 million, it could be $1 billion worth of net worth. And the majority of our people that enter into the Menzel program, they've never bought in a house before. So this is something new for them. And so you think about the wealth that will be created, the intergenerational wealth that will be created, the zakatul mal that will need to be paid out as a result of this. It's massive. And so for every dollar, if you want to simplify, for every dollar creates maybe $6 to $10 of wealth for the Muslim in this program. Now, can we turn 100 million to a billion? Of course we can. Can we do $10 billion worth of this? Of course, there's so much demand. There's actually a lot of wealth within the Muslim community, but it's fragmented. It's not concentrated in one place, in one area, in order for us to, right, use it in the most effective and efficient way. That is what our job is today. Is that okay, Sheikh? Yes, what more do you want? Uh-huh. Yes, اتشرفنا. Yeah, alhamdulillah. قرض حسن, yeah. Mm-hmm. What we can do is, again, this is another need, another way to help, let's say, the masjid expand, is why don't we turn that qard hasan into an investment? No, from the investor, right? Because what then happens is, now you're not asking for a donation, right? Yeah, but there's a couple ways, right? Because you have a qard hasan, meaning now you have a large sum of money that needs to be paid back in a short period of time. Sah? What I'm saying is take that money, put it into a musharaka financing agreement so that you can then pay monthly payments that are much smaller, and they're happy. Why? Because they're getting a monthly return and a profit as a result of it. Okay, inshallah, biznillah, we can discuss. Go ahead,
Assalamu
brother.
alaikum, brother. My question
Wa
is,
alaikum salam.
you guys are acting like a real estate agent, or you want to help brothers who wants to buy a house? Because when this brother asked a question, I didn't understand. Let's say a brother find a house $200,000. He
Yep.
wants to buy it according to manzil.
Okay.
What kind of help you guys are offering to this brother?
We're
That-
offering the financing.
The finance, like you have finance without the conditions. There must be some conditions in there. That's why I will charge you this much, and this house will be yours, and you will pay me monthly this much.
Well, the condition is you have to have a 20% down payment.
Okay,
So if you want to buy something for 200,000, you have to come up with 40.
correct.
I would give you the 160, right?
Yeah.
And then we would go into an agreement up to 25 years and
Okay.
say, you give me a monthly payment, I don't know, maybe it's $1,000 a month it would cost you.
If
We
I
have a
pay-
calculator online.
If I pay 40,000 and you take care of the 160, this 160 for 25 years, I just pay monthly. You don't charge any service for that?
I don't charge you what, sorry?
Any service for this that I pay monthly?
Well, the monthly payment includes a profit rate, right?
Yeah, but how much? How many percentage? That's the question.
So right now, our 5-year musharaka profit rate is around 6.5%. That's what we would charge you.
Okay.
That's it.
Because nowadays there is some brother coming with this concept, like some car dealers that now you go for for example buying a car
Yeah.
is $50,000.
Yeah.
You tell the guy, well, I cannot pay that right away. You say, okay, in 3 years you will pay that. I'll charge you 70,000.
Yeah, that's a
And
murabaha.
then month you pay this. When you pay the amount, car is yours.
Yes, that's
Is
a
it the same
murabaha.
thing with month? You guys will do that, or?
Well, what we do, right, we don't say it's 0% and then we're adding more. We say no, like the financing rate is 6.5% via musharaka. So we'll give you the 160 so that you own the home.
Yes.
And you have monthly payments of up to 25 years. You can do it over 10 years. You can do it over 5 years. You can do it over 15. We'll go maximum 25 years with you.
So when the payment is done,
Yeah.
this house belongs to the person, or you go back and evaluate it according to the
It
market?
belongs to you from day one.
Oh, okay.
It's in your name. You're the one signing the documents. We don't get involved in the ownership. It's your milk. Yes, akhi. Sorry.
Yeah, I just need clarification for the profit rate that you guys set? Because you're saying that you could fix it for up to 5 years,
Yep.
right? But it's a 25-year mortgage.
Amortization, yeah.
Amortization.
Yeah.
So after the 5 year, let's say I choose to lock it in for 5 years.
Yep.
After that,
We would renew the rate based on the market rates at that time.
so it's not really a fixed. It's not a fixed profit rate over 25 years because after 5
Well,
years.
if it was, it would be akin to a murabaha, which we've done. We've done a 25-year fixed
Do
rate.
you guys offer that 25-year fixed right now?
Yeah, but it's more expensive. That's why no people are taking it. So people are saying, well, rates are going to go down, right? So do you want a 6.5% for the next 5 years, or do you want 8.5% for the next 25 years?
Okay. And what's the how do you calculate your profit rate? Because regular interest rate is based off like Bank of Canada.
Yeah. This is also a very good question because in
inflation,
Sharia,
right?
you have to have a publicly available benchmark, okay? And so what we say, and again, don't confuse this. This is a benchmark. This is our pricing mechanism. We use the Government of Canada bond rate, right? So whatever that rate is today, I think it's about 2.75%, and we put a maximum of 4% on top of that, and that's how we get our pricing. So that in 5 years' time, when you come back to me and say, hey, Menzel, what's your rate? You don't even need to ask us. You can just figure it out yourself, right? It's publicly available. Oh, the bond, like I can't come to you and say, oh, the 5-year musharaka in 5 years' time, masalan, is 10%. But you could be like, well, the 5-year bond rate is 2, and you put a maximum of 4, it should be 6, right? So this way, it's clear, it's transparent, it's publicly available. We're not playing games here. That's our pricing mechanism. Yes,
Thank
brother.
you.
The market price is let's say after 5 years, this brother asked, for 5 years, let's say 6.5%. And
Yeah.
after 5 years, the bank is 7% and you charge 8%. That is riba. That's what the difference between.
No. Yeah, so okay. Let's dig into that a little bit further, right? Just because there's a percentage doesn't mean that it's riba or interest. If I take $10 and divide it by $20, that's 50%, right? So just because there's a percentage, you have to look at the transaction, akhi. Am I giving you money? I'm not. I'm not lending you money. I'm saying I'm an owner in this home. I have shares in this home, and I am selling my shares at whatever price I want. It's no different than if you want to buy Apple stock today. Apple stock is $200 a share. Tomorrow it's $220. Oh, it went up by 10%. Does that mean it's riba? No. What are you buying? You're buying a share of an actual company, a real company. You're not taking that money and buying money. This is a big misconception and it's a very misconstrued way of looking at it, right? So let's not conflate, right, interest with percentage. No, we're not. But I'm talking to you. So okay, let's say the water bottle, I buy it for $1. And I say, I'm going to put a 20% premium on that water bottle. 20%. So what am I selling it to you for? $1.20. Is that haram? Okay. No, it's not. No, it's not. Yeah. We can have a separate discussion, akhi, but we have the most world-renowned scholars that have reviewed we are the only company in Canada that all the scholars hasn't even asked us to change a word or even a harf, a letter on our contracts. And all madhabs, by the way, Hanafi, Hanbali, Shafi'i, Maliki, all of them. No, that's a Sheikh Qardawi fatwa that was misused by the community, to be honest, right? Whenever there's a fatwa that comes out, like this example from Sheikh Qardawi that said, oh, if you live in the West and it's your own principal home and it's not an investment property, you can use a non-Sharia compliant mortgage. That was for one specific situation and one family. That specific situation, that family was, a mother came to Sheikh Qardawi and said, Nobody's willing to rent to me. My family is too big. I cannot get funds from my family to help me buy a house in cash. I cannot get qard hasan from my family or my community to buy a house in cash. I will be stranded in the streets as a result. All of the options were exhausted. And then Sheikh Al-Qardawi said, okay, fine. For your situation, you can buy a house to put your family in stability and support. And if you have to use a non-Sharia compliant mortgage, then do so. So let's be very specific when it comes to these fatwas from the ulama and the scholars, and not use them, right, to say, well, oh, well, there are scholars that have said this and this. Scholars are very, very particular and meticulous when it comes to issuing a fatwa. They do not like to issue fatwas because it is a big dhanb. It is a big responsibility on their shoulders, because us here, we will use it to our advantage. Brother, you have a question?
You mentioned the murabaha percentage for 25 years is 8.5.
8.5%.
Is that the only offering, or do you also split up murabaha 5 years at a time as well?
No, well, so this is the
Murabaha
thing.
has to be 25.
Murabaha is bay', right? Bay' or shira, right? So I'm buying and then I'm selling at one price.
Okay.
I can sell it to you, the murabaha, for 5 years. But now you have to pay $1 million in 5 years. Can you do that?
No, I mean the profit rate.
You can't. You
Okay,
can't reset. I can't go, like I told you about the 4.5% mortgages we did 3 years ago, 4 years ago. I can't go back to them and say, oh, we need to
Right.
reprice. The market has changed. I'm losing money. No.
So murabaha
I'm
has
stuck.
always a 25-year fixed.
Up to
profit.
25 years.
Up to 25-year fixed rate.
Fixed rate doesn't change. By the way, they have this in the US, 30-year mortgages.
Yeah.
In the European Union, they have 25, 30-year fixed rate mortgages. It doesn't change.
Yes.
They're very used to it. This is very unique to the Canadian market, where we have a 5-year renewable. Yeah, I've been asked that there's food, coffee, samosas. Please help yourselves. Huh? Timbits. Are there Timbits left? But we're still here. Like, we're happy to answer your questions, inshallah. Yeah, brother. And then I'll get to you.
Why don't we pause for 10 minutes and then come back? This way, at least everybody's waiting for your question.
Everybody wants to hear from you, brother. Oh, yeah. You should do that. I introduced you. Assalamu alaikum. This is our boy from Montreal. Yeah. He onboarded the Menzel Mortgage Fund.
You have a coffee here, you have a tea, garbage is beside. Yeah. I have to be tough. If the brother talk too long, give him a break. I go cup. We'll put light.
Yeah, we can put light. I don't know.
You need sister too. I have sisters. So we are back now. If you have a question,
Yeah. We have found it.
you keep going there. Shows no time for Maghrib is in 20 minutes.
But I help out because I facilitate the whole process. So inshallah, I'll get
Sheikh, help me. Let's sit because it's live. Huh? You know, this is live.
brother.
It's live on the internet. We need to start to have times 20
Yeah.
minutes before Maghrib.
Okay, Jazakallah khairan. We're just approaching Maghrib, so whatever questions are left, we're happy to answer them. In the meantime, there is a microphone. While you guys are thinking about questions, I want Brother Rashid to introduce himself. For those that do know him, we all know he's an amazing guy, but for those that don't know, he has to prove himself that he's an amazing guy.
I think I'm amazing. My mom told me. Assalamu alaikum, everybody.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
So Jazakallah khair for everybody for hosting us at this event. It's our second or third time that we've been here, and we're very fortunate to come here. Basically, as Brother Muhammad said, I'm the feet on the ground in the Ottawa area. So yes, I am the realtor. I'm the regional lead for Munzil Realty up here, so I help to facilitate that transaction. But I like to think of myself as more than that I'm sort of like the gateway to Munzil from an Ottawa perspective, because a great deal of what I do is introducing, prospective clients, investors, etc., from the community to Munzil in all facets of what they do. And yes, I'm a realtor, so I deal only in real estate, but I'm a true firm believer of what Munzil's doing in terms of its mandate and in terms of what it's trying to achieve. And we are always going to hear of obstacles, challenges from people because they think this, think that. But again, it's our niyyah. And our niyyah is to put Muslims into homes through a halal source. So a bit about the Munzil mortgage process, just to speak about it. As I had said earlier to another brother, as long as the asset has 20% down, Munzil can come in and fund the property. Munzil does do a pre-qualification process. It's a little bit more conservative than conventional lenders, but there's logic behind that. The reasoning is they have to be more conservative because it's investor-backed. Investors are you, the community. So it's important to know that we are going to work together with you, again, from the real estate, Munzil's funding, to ensure that the partnership is successful. We've done about 60 deals in Ottawa now to date. And
250 deals in total.
I said Ottawa.
I know, but I'm just.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, 250.
So we know.
Yeah.
They know.
So
We're
Ottawa
not just
60,
Ottawa-based.
Canada-wise 250. And like Brother Sawaf said, we're in Alberta, BC, Ontario, Quebec. Inshallah, we're going to be Texas, right? Soon?
2026. inshallah.
2026. So yeah, great deal of business and the opportunity is there. Jazakallah khair.
Barakallahu feek.
Any questions?
Questions, comments, concerns? Everybody's happy? Everybody's satisfied?
Everybody's tired from eating?
Tired from listening to me? Yes, Sheikh. The difference? Yeah. Uh-huh. You mean in a musharaka? Uh-huh. Yeah. Yes. Right. Oh, you mean why are we not just giving it at 0%? Oh, as a qard. Okay. Yeah, so this also lends into, so the Sheikh was talking about that there's a brother asking about why don't we just give you the 500,000 as a qard hasan? under murabaha or musharaka, and you just give me $500,000 back, well, we wouldn't have a business, right? Like, how do we make money? How do I hire employees? How do we generate returns, right? And this is a misconception even within the Muslim community with respect to the knowledge of Islamic finance, that just because it's 0% interest or riba free doesn't mean that it's profit free. Even non-Muslims have come to me and said, oh, I'd love a 0% interest mortgage. I said, okay, come, you're going to pay 6.5%. And so, as I was mentioning, I think to one of the brothers, right, like our investors expect a higher than average return because we are a new entity, right? Even though, alhamdulillah, we've raised over $100 million and we've done $100 million worth of transactions, people look at that as still very new. So if I come to you, let's say I come to any of you and I say, give me your money for 0%, will you give it to me? Some people might say yes, but most people will say no. Okay, so if you're not willing to give me your money for 0%, how can I give it to them for 0%? Where is the money coming from? So then I say, okay, well, will you give it to me for 3%? Some people, maybe, right? They say, I can forget Sharia compliance. I can go to the bank and get a GIC for 3%. And the bank is a big bank and they're protecting me. So they said, okay, well, how much do you want? Oh, I need 5% or 5.5%. Okay, give me your money for 5.5% profit, and I will give it to this person. But what's the mortgage price going to be? Can I do the mortgage for 4%? If I need to give you 5.5? No, I'm losing money, right? So I say, okay, I'll give it to him for 6.5. And that 1% difference, I use it for operations, for payroll, for regulatory licenses, for legal fees, for whatever. It's not a lot of money at the end of the day, that 1% spread. So that's how the business works. Now, if you guys say, oh, I know somebody who can give you $100 million at 2%, okay, send him to me, no problem. I'll give you a mortgage for 3%. No problem. I have no problems, right? But I can't lose money, right? I can't lose my investors' money. I can't have the business lose money. Otherwise, nothing works, right? So we need to get away from this mindset that interest-free or riba-free means it's zero profit, or the only way that I will take money to own a home is through qard hasan. Okay, you have friends and family, go through them. But we are a for-profit company. We are not a charity. We are not a not-for-profit, right? Yes, brother. Yeah. Yes. 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 But this is a murabaha, which we do. We do murabaha, right? They do it differently. They say, okay, we'll give you 0%, but we add more money. I tell you, like, if you calculate what the extra $10,000 on that 40,000, from 40 to 50, if you calculate it over 3 years, maybe it's 10% profit rate. Maybe, right? If you do the math, maybe. I'm telling you that in my 20-year murabaha, it's going to be 8.5%. So I'm going to add 8.5% to $500,000 over the next 25 years. And so I will buy for 500 and I will give it to you for $1 million, for example. Right? That's the cost. No different than how the car dealership does it. And you can say, you know what? I'm buying this house now today for $1 million at 0%. Right? That's what they're doing. We can do the same thing. That's a murabaha. There's nothing wrong with that, right? But then, of course, all of the contractual details is the difference between, the car dealership and us from a Sharia compliance perspective.
So I'll just jump in there as well. So something important to know is that when it comes to real estate, because that's the big topic everybody talks about, real estate itself appreciates, residential at least, in Ottawa, on average appreciates 6 to 8% per year. for freehold properties. For condos, on average, they appreciate 2 to 4%. Now, that's based off of 53 years of data from the Ottawa Real Estate Board. So the key thing to take away from that is the way that real estate appreciates versus like a 25-year murabaha, it may take much longer for it to catch up to that value. And why that's important to think is because if you have a lifestyle change, you know, maybe your children are moving out, so your house is too big, or vice versa. Maybe you're having more children and you need a bigger place. So if you come to sell that house, but you agreed to a 25-year murabaha, it's going to take X amount of years to get caught up to it. It's for that reason why, like Brother Swaf said, like 95% of the people take the diminishing musharaka.
Yeah.
Because you take it on a 3 to 5 year period, and even real estate data shows that the average family sells their house every 3 to 5 years. So it's more aligned to it, and it saves you money. I just wanted to...
Yeah. Any other questions that are being queued up? No? What time is Maghrib? Oh, okay. So then we do have a hard stop in 2 minutes for Salat al-Maghrib. Yes, brother. Yeah, so so think of the checkings and savings accounts as like a retail or core banking product. This is outside of the investment products that we would have, right? So when we talk about the Menzel checkings account, we're talking about you having the ability to deposit your payroll, having the ability to send money, EFTs, right? Having the ability to pay bills, having a virtual debit MasterCard, a physical debit MasterCard to be able to use, right? So that product is currently being worked on, and inshallah, once we get Bank of Canada approval on the licenses, we're anticipating end of this year. It might be delayed to Q1 next year, but for sure, within the next 3 to 6 months. We're highly confident about that now. Yeah, that's a good question. Where does the profit come from, right? So in the UK, they call these PLS accounts, or profit and loss sharing accounts. Now that's just the name, but like you said, where does the profit come from? So let's say you put money into a savings account. It comes onto our balance sheet. We would take that money. We would do Sharia compliant financing activities. Let's say we use it for the Menzel mortgage, right? The Menzel mortgage brings a profit back, and then I get to say, well, I'm going to share some of that with you, right? So that's the only way you can have a Sharia compliant savings account. It can't be, oh, you give me 100,000, I'm going to give you 5%. No, I have to generate that profit by doing Sharia compliant financing activities in the background and then sharing that with you as a result of your deposit. You're welcome. If there are no more questions or comments or concerns, we can end it here. Jazakumullahu khairan. If there are questions that come up during Salah, or we can hang out for a few minutes after, but we really want to thank you, everyone, for showing up, for your diligence, for your questions, for challenging us. We're here for the community, and we're here to support you guys in terms of building a halal financial lifestyle and building halal wealth. So Jazakumullahu khairan wa barakallahu feekum.
الله أكبر الله أكبر
Allahu Akbar.
الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله هيا على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح